Hi, my name is Zeb, and this is my first video review for Darling Dork, and I am reviewing a card game today from Griffin Games called Fleet. The premise of Fleet: it's for 2 to 4 players. Players take on the role of fishing captains, accessing a previously inaccessible bay in far northern Nunavut, Canada. This bay has been revealed somehow, it's previously been kept secret, and now, because it's open, everybody is trying to fish it as quickly as possible. So, it's could be best described as a tableau building card game, something like Race for the Galaxy, but with an auction mechanic thrown into it. That's the most basic pitch I have. But I'm going to walk you through all the different components that are here in the game. So, what do you get? You start with the enormous deck of boat cards. Boat cards have a variety of uses in the game, so I'll get into that. The fishing cubes, these determine the crates of fish that are being caught. They're the point mechanic. They're also a mechanic for determining when the game ends. The starting player token. 4 reference cards. These show symbols that are relevant in the game so that the language on the cards makes sense. The fishing licenses, which I'll get into in a moment. And then the box and the instructions, and that's basically what you get. It's conveniently travel-sized. Points, something I always appreciate. So, basic mechanics. Fishing licenses are some of the most important parts of the game. What do the fishing licenses do? They determine what kinds of fish you can go out and seek. So, in the first turn of the game, this is called Phase 1. Phase 1 is the auction mechanic. There are a number of fishing licenses equal to the number of players out. You deduct a certain number of licenses from the game depending on how many players you have. So, there are 7 kinds of licenses overall. There's the Fisherman's Pub, which is just worth a lot of points. It's also very expensive. There is the King Crab. It's worth a lot of points depending on what you've developed throughout the game. And then you have 5 different kinds of licenses that are called the basic licenses. There's the processing vessel that lets you process the fish you've caught, lobster, tuna, shrimp, and king cod. Those are the kinds of fish that are available in the game. So in Phase 1, players will bid over these licenses. There's a minimum cost associated with each license. It might be 5 or 4, depending on which license it is. And you pay using cards that you have in your hand. So you start the game with 1 of everything. These cards have a little coin icon on the bottom of them that determines how much they're worth. That's what you use to pay with. So if I wanted to buy the processing vessel license, I would pay, I don't know, 3 with the tuna, and then another 2 from the shrimp. That's 5. If nobody else bids on it, that's what I pay. There's a catch, however. You can't make change from the cards that you have. So let's say the bid goes up to 6 on that one, and all I have are the 3, a 2, and another 2. I pay 7 for the license, but I don't get $1 back in change. I just have to overpay. So you have to be careful in what you're bidding. Once everybody bids, or passes, you can choose not to buy a license in a given turn. It refreshes and it goes back up to the number of players. So if there are 3 people playing, there will be 3 licenses available at the end of the auction. So that's Phase 1, and probably the single most important part. Then you go to the launch boats phase. When you launch boats, you pay a cost printed in the top left corner of the card, and you pay that again using the little coins that are on the bottom of the card. So the processing vessel, it costs 2, and you have to pay 2 for it. So, I don't know, lobster, I use lobster to pay for it. The processing vessel is now out in front of me, like so. Then you hire a captain. You can't do anything with a ship until you have a captain on it, because we haven't invented robot ships that catch fish for us automatically yet. You do that simply by taking a card in your hand, putting it face down, boom, it's captained, you're done. Relatively painless and simple to get through. Then you go fishing. Fishing is Phase 3. It's very simple. For every boat you have that has a corresponding license, you catch 1 fish per. So if I have 2 shrimp boats and a shrimp license, they each get 1 little cube that goes on the boat. Boats can hold up to a capacity of 4 crates before they're considered to be full. After that, they can't take on any more fish. Each crate you have on the boat is worth a point. Now, if you would like, there's a 4th phase, the processing phase. So I mentioned that processing vessel. If I have another ship, let's say, I don't know, lobster. Lobster has a little doodad on it, and I have the processing vessel license over here. I can take this cube off the lobster boat and put it on my processing vessel license. Now, it's no longer worth a point, but I can do a couple things with it. The crates are worth $1 a piece in any transaction, so for launching a boat, or auctioning. I can use crates as well as cards to pay for stuff. I can also discard the crate for cards once I have the processing vessel license. So then you come to phase 5. In phase 5, it's fairly simple. Everybody draws 2 cards, keeps 1, and then everything goes back to normal. Starting player moves between the players, so each player gets to go first in an auction phase. One thing I may not have discussed properly with the licenses, every license has an associated bonus that goes along with it. So, take shrimp, for example. With shrimp, if you have 1 shrimp license, you get $1 off all subsequent transactions. So if it would normally cost you $2 to launch a boat, it now costs 1. That amount increases for every shrimp license you have. If you had all 4, you would have a $4 discount on everything. So certain transactions become very, very cheap at that point. Or take, for example, the tuna license. With the tuna license, at the end of phase 5, when you draw 2 cards and keep 1, if you have a tuna license, you just draw 2 cards. You don't have to discard 1, so it improves your draw at the end of the game. That's important because you need those cards to have money to launch more boats and do cool stuff with. That is Fleet in a nutshell. What did I think of this game? I liked it with a couple of provisos thrown in. I don't really like it for 2 players, and part of that's just because I don't really like 2-player auction games. It's hard to have a really dynamic auction mechanic when it's just one other person, because it's not that exciting. They're just going to go to their limit, but there's no third or fourth person who's trying to pursue their own agenda by edging the price up. It's not really that exciting to do with. And because so much of what makes this game unique is its auction mechanic, 2 players isn't particularly great. I do wish also that there were more licenses out at any given time. Maybe I just had bad luck with this, and having the second or third turn continually stacked up with premium licenses. Premium licenses are great because they give you lots of points, but that's not useful early game because they're not giving you the bonuses you need to actually do stuff with. So if you're just really unlucky like me, I would repeatedly have an auction mechanic where I would have, say, 3 licenses out, and 2 of them would be king crab and 1 of them would be shrimp. There would be one really exciting bid that would happen, but then the other 2 people, well, they don't want to go for a king crab license if it's not particularly useful. You do have to pay a minimum cost, so it's really expensive early game. So I wish there were more licenses out at any given time. One friend of mine suggested doing number of players plus 1 or 2, so if you have 2 players, there are 3 licenses out. If you have 4, there are 5. I'll be curious to try that in subsequent games. So that's the bad. The good, it's quick. I really like this game because it's a fast-paced game, and once you have it down, you can play really quickly. And that's nice to me because sometimes I don't want to play a 7-hour 2-player war game. Sometimes I want a nice half-hour card game that I can just play, move on to something else. The rules are a little tricky to get into, but once you have it down, you can play very quickly. I think the only piece of confusion I encountered was over the processing vessel. The rulebook was a little unclear on whether or not a processing vessel lets you take 1 crate of fish per processing vessel or 1 for every just boat that you have, which would make processing vessels apparently super efficient, some sort of robot processing vessel. What else do we have that I like in this game? The license mechanics is really cool, actually. I like that each license gives you a bonus because it gives the gameplay a lot of variability. You can choose to just be a shrimp fisherman and catch nothing but shrimp all the time, which then everything is so cheap for you. Or you can choose to be a cod fisherman, and apparently launching boats is just so powerful because you're drawing cards constantly from it, and you just spam a fleet that, annihilates your enemies in fishing. I really like that in this game. Or you can choose to be a jack of all trades and just specialize. You could have one in everything and just kind of be good at everything a little bit, but not a specialist at anything. All of these strategies work. So the game's fundamental element, the strategy building from the licenses, that all works fine. And that's really good. I like that part of this game. So overall, it has a couple of issues, but I think they're worth playing through to get at what is basically a very good game here. If I had to give it a number, I'd give it a 7 or 8 out of 10. Probably it might go up once I incorporate a few of my little own home brews into it to try to tweak the rules a little bit. I like to do that because I'm a hopeless dork and have nothing better to do. Again, this is Fleet. It costs about $20 to $25. Should be available in a lot of different stores. I encourage you to go out and pick up a copy. Have fun with this game.